What would you do if you woke up on a plane, drugged, disoriented, and told you how to jump without knowing where you were going or why? Would you take the leap into the unknown or fight for answers? Let's find out. Deep in the forest, Dresa jolts awake at the sound of an approaching plane. She grips her weapon, eyes locked on her target. The moment a man steps off the aircraft, bang, a bullet takes him down. Meanwhile, former Marine Levi wakes up drenched in sweat from a nightmare. To clear his head, he heads to the beach for some fresh air. The next morning, a message flashes on his phone. Report to Marine Corps base. At the base, Levi meets Agent Bartholomew. She knows everything about him. His legendary sniper skills, his lack of family, his solitary life. She offers him a job. No details, just an opportunity he can't refuse. In Lithuania, Dresa stands in a cemetery beside her father. It's the anniversary of her mother's death. Her father, battling terminal cancer, makes a chilling announcement. If I'm still alive by February 14th, I'll end it myself to be with her. Months later, Levi wakes up groggy on a plane, his body still heavy from anesthesia. A soldier sits nearby. "Where are we?" he asks. She doesn't answer. Instead, she confiscates his belongings and tells him the hard truth. They're entering a no-fly zone. He has to jump. With no choice, Levi straps on his gear, grips the parachute cord, and leaps into the unknown. He lands safely but faces a grueling trek, climbing steep terrain, battling exhaustion, and camping under the stars. Eventually, he reaches the edge of a vast gorge, where he meets JD, a soldier who's been stationed there for a year. JD doesn't know where they are either, but he does know the rules. The West Tower, their base, is completely self-sufficient. Solar power, a backup generator, a rainwater system, even a vegetable garden. Across the gorge stands the East Tower, but communication is strictly forbidden. The gorge itself is a deadly fortress. Landmines, tactical barriers, and no way to cross. JD explains Levi's mission. Patrol the western rim. Restock ammo for the automatic turrets every 600 meters. Check the containment fence. Maintain the suspended mines. And ensure the cloakers keep the area invisible to satellites. Levi listens, his mind racing. Where is he? Who is he really working for? And what the hell is he protecting? Every 30 days, the radio checks in, but there's no way to talk to the outside world. In case of an emergency, there's a panic button that triggers something called the stray dog protocol. But JD has no idea what that actually means. He just warns Levi to run if it ever happens. JD explains that this place dates back to the Cold War. Back then, military teams from different countries made a secret pact to keep its existence hidden. Not even presidents or world leaders know about it. Levi's only job is simple but chilling. Make sure nothing from the gorge gets out. It sounds insane, but JD used to think so too, until he saw them. The guards call them Hollow Men, and right now, their eerie screeches echo through the gorge. Back in the late 1940s, the military sent 3 full battalions on horseback to clear the gorge. None of them came back. Since then, containment has been the only option. After this warning, JD leaves the tower, hiking to the pickup point. A helicopter arrives, and a soldier lowers a rope. Once JD climbs aboard and gives the correct password, the soldier shoots him in the head without hesitation. His body is tossed into the mountains. A month later, Levi has settled into the dull routine of his job. He patrols the perimeter, maintains the security systems, and checks in on the radio. The voice on the other end never says much, just asks if everything's fine and hangs up before Levi can ask anything. One day, while tending the garden, Levi notices movement in the other tower. Grabbing his binoculars, he spots a woman, Dresa, chopping wood. She sees him too, but doesn't acknowledge him. One stormy night, Levi jolts awake from a nightmare and knocks a glass to the floor. In a panic, he grabs his gun, thinking he's under attack. But then, pain shoots through his foot. He stepped on the glass. Realizing it was just an accident, he calms down. As he cleans his wound, he notices Dresa watching him from her tower. But the moment she realizes he's looking back, she disappears into her room. Another month passes. Dresa spends her birthday alone. Bored and restless, she fires a shot into the air to get Levi's attention. Holding up a sign, she asks for his name. Levi writes back that they're not supposed to talk. Dresa grins and writes her name anyway, adding that on her birthday, she'll do whatever she wants. Amused, Levi finally gives in. He writes his name and raises a glass for a silent toast. Dresa cranks up the music and starts dancing, then urges Levi to join in. He hesitates, saying he's a terrible dancer but a great sniper. Amused, Dresa suddenly shoots his water bottle. Levi reacts fast, grabbing his gun and shooting hers in return. She grins and places another bottle on her head, ready for another round, until something in the gorge catches her eye. Levi follows her gaze and spots eerie, tree-like creatures crawling up the rock wall toward them. Without hesitation, he fires, hitting one and sending it tumbling onto a mine. The explosion takes down most of the climbers, but a few keep coming. Dresa joins the fight, unloading her machine gun. Within minutes, they clear out the monsters. Just as they start to relax, one of the creatures reaches Dresa's balcony. She shoots it repeatedly before kicking it off the ledge. But more are coming, this time from her side of the gorge. The battle starts again. Another explosion sends shrapnel flying, and a sharp piece of metal cuts into Dresa's shoulder. Now, the creatures are attacking both walls at once. Levi and Dresa unleash everything they've got, setting off more mines and mowing down the monsters until none remain. By morning, Dresa patches up her wound and grins, calling it the best birthday ever. Levi heads down to repair the damage and reset the mines. Suddenly, a drone emerges from the gorge and vanishes into the sky. Months pass. In December, Levi strings lights around a tree in the forest, turning it into a makeshift Christmas tree. He even sets up a sign for Dresa. They start spending more time together, building snowmen, playing chess, and drumming on pots. Then, on February 14th, Levi finds Dresa crying in front of a family picture. She admits she skipped patrol because she was feeling down. She wishes he could be there with her. Determined to cheer her up, Levi heads to the armory, gathers supplies, and builds a special contraption. Moments later, he fires a rocket across the gorge, where it lodges into a tree. A fire breaks out, but Dresa quickly puts it out and notices a rope tied to the rocket. Thinking fast, she secures the rope to a tree before rushing back to the tower, where Levi is waiting and casually asking her to dinner. Without hesitation, Levi grabs the rope and slides across the gorge, but halfway through, he gets stuck. Luckily, he's wearing gloves, so he grips the rope tightly and keeps going. When he finally reaches Dresa's tower, he hands her a bouquet of flowers. She laughs, telling him he stinks from all that effort. Levi agrees to shower, and while he's washing up, Dresa swaps his uniform for some nice clothes left by a former occupant. During dinner, they open up about their lives as mercenaries and the toll it takes on their minds. One thing leads to another, and after a dance, they spend the night together. At sunrise, Levi heads back, sliding on a rope toward his tower. But just as he's halfway across, hollow men appear on the wall and trigger a mine. The explosion snaps the rope, and Levi plunges toward the gorge. Thinking fast, he deploys his parachute, while Dresa rushes to her armory, grabbing weapons and a parachute of her own. Without hesitation, she leaps into the gorge. After falling for miles, she crashes into a river. Her parachute snags on a rock, forcing her to cut it loose. The river's current drags her forward, slamming her into a rock. In the chaos, she loses her auto-ascender. Fighting against the rushing water, she grabs onto tree roots and pulls herself onto land. Meanwhile, Levi is unconscious, dangling from a tree. Suddenly, a branch moves. It's not a branch at all, but a monster. As it slithers closer, Levi wakes up and fires his gun, struggling to free himself. He drops to the ground, landing in what looks like mud. But the mud starts shifting. It's alive. The sticky substance begins pulling him in. It's the mouth of another monster, slowly closing around him. Just in time, Dresa hears the gunfire and rushes in, blasting the creature with bullets. She cuts Levi free with a knife, and together, they start making their way to the wall, searching for another way across. Then, a chilling screech fills the air. Two hollow men appear, riding eerie, tree-like horses. With swords drawn, they charge at Levi and Dresa. One of them leaps from his horse, lunging straight at Dresa. Dresa plunges her knife into the creature's neck, making it collapse. Without wasting a second, she fires a shot straight into its face, finishing it off. Meanwhile, the other rider snaps Levi's gun away with a whip. But Levi doesn't hesitate. He pulls out his second gun and takes them both out in an instant, shooting the rider and the horse in one deadly move. After the fight, Dresa checks her bag and realizes their auto-ascender has fallen into the river. With the walls too high to climb, they're trapped. Thinking fast, she suggests following the river, believing it must lead somewhere. As Levi examines the creature he just killed, he notices something shocking. It's wearing an ancient military uniform. That's when it clicks. The Hollow Men aren't just monsters, they're the lost horseback battalions from the old stories. Pushing forward through the dense forest, they stumble upon hundreds of skeletons scattered along the way. Eventually, they reach an abandoned town, its buildings swallowed by strange, mutated plants. Cracks in the ground suggest an earthquake hit this place long ago. Then, a chilling sound echoes through the air in human screeches. More creatures are coming. With no time to lose, they take cover inside an old church, only to find rows of skeletons still sitting in the pews. Levi catches a whiff of cyanide. These people didn't die fighting. They took their own lives to escape this nightmare. Suddenly, a noise above. Dresa looks up, just in time to see a massive spider lunging at her. She shoves it off, tumbling to the ground, only to see another one crawling toward her. She drives her knife into it, but more are coming. Levi fires rapidly, dropping two before they can reach him. Within moments, they're surrounded by a swarm of spiders. Drace's gun clicks empty. Levi rushes to cover her while she reloads. They make a break for the door, but just then, the hollow men burst in. Now they're trapped between two deadly enemies. Drace slams a creature's head against a table repeatedly before tossing it aside, where the spiders instantly swarm over it. Levi fights off more attackers, struggling in close combat before managing to take them down with precise shots. Thinking fast, Drace launches a grenade at the back wall, blasting open an escape route. Without hesitation, they sprint into the forest, the creature's screeches still echoing behind them. Out in the open, they're vulnerable. They need cover fast. Spotting an old door built into the wall, they force it open and slip inside. What they find is unsettling, an abandoned facility, long overtaken by creeping vines and monstrous plant life. But one thing is clear, this nightmare isn't over yet. As they explore deeper, they uncover a shocking truth. This place was once a military lab. Skeletons lie scattered around, and Drace powers up an old generator. Levi discovers a tape and plays it on a projector. On the screen, a scientist appears. He reveals it's 1946, and this hidden community was part of a secret international project. In the final years of World War II, they worked on biochemical missiles. But 6 days before this recording, an earthquake struck, causing a chemical leak. The scientists scrambled to contain the toxin, but it fused with the DNA of local plants and animals, mutating them. Exposure for a few hours was harmless, but prolonged contact started changing the scientists too. The proof? A woman in the film lifts her shirt. Her stomach is covered in branch-like growths. Luckily, the gorge kept the toxin from spreading to the outside world. Moving to another room, Levi and Drace find an old computer from the late 2000s, evidence that people kept coming along after the disaster. When Levi boots it up, he makes a chilling discovery. This facility belongs to Dark Lake, a private paramilitary company. The drone they saw earlier wasn't random. It was gathering samples for Dark Lake's experiments. Their goal? To create super soldiers. The towers and armed guards are there to keep their secret safe. Then Levi stumbles upon something even worse, the Stray Dog Protocol. It's a nuclear bomb, set to wipe out the entire area if another leak occurs. As they prepare to leave, Levi turns to Drace. "This mission was worth it," he says, "because I met you." They open the door, toss a smoke grenade, and step outside. Then it happens. A whip shoots out from the darkness, wrapping around Drace's ankle. She screams as she's yanked away. The Hollow Man has found them. Dragged through the forest, she fights back, slashing at the whip with her knife. But she crashes into a tree, losing her weapon. She pulls out a gun, but the constant bumps from rocks and branches make it impossible to aim. Levi races after her, following the rider's tracks, until he reaches a facility. Inside, the Hollow Man has strung Drace up. He grabs the branch embedded in her stomach and twists it, making her scream in agony. But Drace isn't giving up. Gritting her teeth, she kicks him in the chest. The force knocks him back just enough for her to untangle herself from the ropes. The fight isn't over yet. Drace shoves the Hollow Man away and grabs a sharp piece of metal to use as a weapon. But the Hollow Man is too strong, and the snake in his chest lunges at her. Refusing to give up, Drace swings hard and slices off the snake's head before hurling the metal at the Hollow Man. It barely hurts him, only making him angrier. He charges at her, swinging his sword, forcing Drace to dodge around the room. Thinking fast, she grabs Bones to shield herself and lights a torch from the bonfire. As flames lick his body, the Hollow Man howls in pain, just as Levi bursts in and shoots him dead. Reunited, Levi and Drace share a quick hug before Levi inspects the corpse. He recognizes the name on the uniform. It belonged to the first guard from his tower. Taking the Hollow Man's sword, they press forward, eventually reaching the site of the original toxin leak. Mutated creatures are trapped in the goo, their grotesque faces still breathing. As they carefully cross a bridge, Drace accidentally steps on a root, pulling at the sticky substance. Suddenly, the bodies begin dropping, reaching for her. Levi slashes through the roots, freeing her just as even larger creatures wake up and roar. He fights his way forward with the sword, but then something whips around his ankle and yanks him down. Thinking fast, Drace hurls a grenade behind them. The explosion ignites the goo, sending flames racing through the entire structure. As fire consumes the creatures, the two sprint up the stairs and finally escape. Outside, they search the town and find military jeeps in an abandoned garage. After fixing an engine, they speed off, driving for hours until they reach the broken rope. Levi quickly ties it to the jeep while Drace fires at Hollow Men closing in. When she runs out of bullets, they swap positions. Once the Jeep is secured, they begin climbing the wall. At first, everything goes smoothly, but then they realize the Hollow Men are scaling the wall right behind them. Kicking one off, Levi grabs the sword and slashes at the rest. Dresa digs through the toolbox and finds an axe, joining the fight. As Levi shove a monster into the spinning wheels, Dresa smashes another that lands on the windshield, sending it plummeting down. A Hollow Man suddenly jumps at Levi, trying to push him off. At the last second, Levi grabs onto the Jeep, but he's left dangling. Struggling to climb back up, he stabs the Jeep's gas tank. Once he's back inside, he lights a flare and tosses it at the creatures. The gas dripping from the tank ignites, triggering a massive explosion that burns the monsters, but also blows up the Jeep. Levi is thrown against a wall, breaking his leg. Dresa rushes to help him. Since they're now closer to the top, they decide to cut the rope, sending the wrecked Jeep crashing down on the remaining Hollow Men. With the creatures crushed, Levi and Dresa finish climbing and return to Dresa's tower. Exhausted and injured, they tend to their wounds. Worried about infection, they agree to stay apart for 5 days as a quarantine measure. But they also decide to escape together, planning to destroy the Gorge. Before Levi leaves, they share a kiss, and he tells Dresa he loves her. Using a grappling gun, he launches himself back to his own tower. The next day, Levi checks in over the radio. But instead of the usual worker, Bartholomew answers. She's discovered that the lab computer was turned on. When Levi denies going into the Gorge, she realizes someone from the other tower must have. That means Levi's new mission is clear. He has to kill them. Levi pretends to accept the mission, but once the call ends, it's revealed that the lab computer had a hidden camera. Bartholomew already knows the truth. Both Levi and Dresa were down there. She immediately contacts a commander, ordering a team to investigate the Gorge. The next morning, as Levi and Dresa prepare mines for their escape plan, Dresa leaves a message for Levi. I love you back. Just then, they spot a helicopter approaching. Without hesitation, they sprint into the forest. Soldiers reach their empty towers and deploy drones, kicking off a high-speed chase. The drones open fire, forcing Levi and Dresa to shoot back while dodging attacks. Wounded but determined, they fight off the machines one by one. Finally, they reach higher ground, take sniper positions, and target the cloakers. As planned, the mines detonate in a massive chain reaction, wiping out everything in sight. With the Gorge now fully exposed, the Stray Dog Protocol is activated. Bartholomew and her team race toward the helicopter, desperate to escape. Meanwhile, Levi and Dresa sprint for their lives. But before they can get to safety, the nuclear bomb detonates. The massive explosion rips through the sky, knocking the helicopter out of control. It crashes violently, killing everyone on board. The shockwave hurls Levi off the edge of a cliff, sending him plunging into a raging river below. Dresa, barely escaping the blast, finds shelter in a cave, anxiously waiting for Levi to return. Days turn to weeks. A month passes with no sign of him. Heartbroken, she finally decides to leave. Sometime later, in France, Dresa is working as a waitress, trying to move on. But one day, she freezes in shock. Levi is sitting at one of the tables alive. He tells her it took time to recover from his injuries. Overwhelmed, Dresa rushes to him, and they reunite with a passionate kiss.